I've just moved in as a uni student, and this is my third day in student accommodation. And just for reference, I'm based in London, so any of the figures I'm going to be giving are based on calculations for students in London. There's no fancy animations or anything. We're just going to keep straight to the point. Feel free to rewind this if you want to hear any of the figures again. But I've just got some rough estimations about student finance because a lot of people first think, oh, how am I going to save this? How am I going to work all this? I need to first know how much money is coming in, then you can work. I've divided this video into 3 parts, and we're going to do it hopefully in one take. Hopefully, fingers crossed. The first part looks at estimating costs. So we're going to talk through a spreadsheet, and hopefully in this video, I can include a link, a little link to Save the Students spreadsheet for students. And what you can do is look at different sections. So let me pull up some of the sections. You've got mobile phone expenditure. If, for example, your parents aren't paying it and you're paying it yourself, then you've got that mobile phone expenditure to budget for. By budgeting for all these different things, anything from gym to groceries, if your place isn't catered, it depends. Normally places that are catered are generally more expensive than the ones that aren't catered. For example, my accommodation isn't catered, but I have to get all these things. Gotta go buy some juice. I've got to go buy anything from burger sauce, who knows? And then you've got to prepare it, which uses up a lot of time. And remember, at the end of the day, time is money. So we've got that estimating cost bit, spreadsheets. I'll talk through that a little bit after I've talked about the points. The second point is managing costs. Because yes, you need to know what your budget is, but how are you actually going to make sure that you keep to that budget, or sometimes maybe perform better than that budget? In business, you have all sorts of things, but this video isn't about business. This video is about living life as a student, particularly for those in London. I'm in London, I'm in central London, so I can relate to any of the struggles if you're already in university and you're watching this, or if you're thinking of going to university and you come from a town where things cost much less. Well, I'm from Portsmouth, right? And Portsmouth is generally a cheaper place to live out of most places in England, not the UK, because Scotland and Wales are generally cheaper in terms of the cost of living. But what I did was I bulk bought a lot of groceries and things that if I'm hungry, I can grab a quick snack, maybe like a breakfast bar or something for breakfast, and then have lunch and dinner instead of having to consistently make the meals, wash up, use your time, which you could have been using for something else, study or making money, working a job in, say, wherever. So you manage those costs. You have to have the right mindset to it. You can't easily get influenced. We know how easy it is when your friends say, you know what, let's go chicken shop. Or if you go to the club, your friends come out and say, let's go party or whatever. In central London, as a particular example, you could spend £30 in a night on the lower end if you're super frugal, or you could spend maybe even hundreds if you drink heavily or you drink high end. Who knows? That bit's up to you, but managing those costs is really important. So you've got to get yourself in the right mindset. It's better not to get used to going out every single day. If you're starting in uni, might be a good shout to maybe just keep on your ones, keep a load for a couple of days and then slowly transition into life. Because if you're super close with your family, for example, you always have things, say, made for you, food, things cleaned up. It's going to be difficult to get to the hang of things. I've been here for 3 days and I still have boxes in the corner. Just got a little mini fridge to save myself the walk to the kitchen. Everything's about water filters, glasses and stuff, and the kitchen's a shared one, so I've got to go and wash things up again. That uses up time, so you need to put your time wisely. I guess that's something I've learned in practice right now. But so you manage your costs. We've got the first one, estimating costs. That's to do with a spreadsheet. Second one, managing costs, getting your mindset in shape and making sure that you don't consistently go out more than you really need to. Because if you're in university studying and you're coming from a place far away, whether you're an international student or you're a domestic student from, say, a different town, or maybe you just live in London yourself and you're living on your own, for an example, then you're going to have an interesting time adapting to things here because things are really expensive. Parking, if you have a car, it's a huge headache. I drive myself, but I don't drive in London because parking would be £24 a day. There's 40 weeks, 7 days in 40 in each week, 40 times 7, 280. Times that by 24, it just doesn't make sense. £5 a year in parking? It's ridiculous. And sometimes you can get deals and stuff like that, but it just doesn't make sense. Plus insurance, I'm 18 right now, and to get insurance on a car worth about £1,000 is probably £1,500. If you get a nicer car, it's unrealistic. Some cars worth what, 5-10 grand and above with larger engines can cost maybe five grand a year, which is ridiculous, especially for people our age. Unless you're somehow balling it out and you've already made it in life, then why would you be in university? Who knows? But why would you be watching this video? But anyways, you got a managing cost. Here's the problem. Now you got to get some money coming in, because most students, I was talking about this with a friend earlier. Most students tend to pay in central London. Let's say the lowest cost of accommodation is around £6,000, £6,500 a year. And your student finance differs. We'll talk through some figures in a bit. Before we do that, some student accommodation, especially urbanist accommodation in central London, costs about £13,000 a year. And the max you can get in London as a student from student finances, a maintenance loan. Bear in mind that's a loan, the money you get into your bank account to pay for your expenses. We're not talking about bursaries or any of that stuff, just your student loan. Not the bit that pays your tuition, but the money that comes into your account and you spend accordingly. You pay your rent, you pay your groceries or whatever, or just your own expenses. Well, that maintenance loan differs. If you're earning £20,000 a year in London, you're getting around the top, the maximum area. I'm not exactly sure of the exact top that you can get, but it's normally around 12 grand. This is in London. Outside of London, it's much lower. But here, let's say 12 grand. Exactly £12,010. If your family together, your mum and dad, or maybe just your mum, or maybe just your dad, or your guardian, are earning £20,000 a year, you would get £12,010 a year from your maintenance loan. If they are earning £40,000 a year, then you would get £10,000. This is exactly, I got these figures up before I made this video. If you're earning £60,000 a year in your household, so your parents together, guardian, whatever, £60,000 a year, you'd be getting £7,319 a year. In London, remember, this is not anywhere else. It would be much lower anywhere else because the cost of living here is humongous. It's ridiculous. When you go outside, you need to hold yourself back from spending money. If you're on the higher end, or go another 20 grand on top of that, 60 grand a year. Say if your household's earning £80,000 a year, which is really quite normal for London. You've got analysts at investment banks earning what, 50 to 80 grand a year as grad scheme jobs and all that. But let's just say 80 grand a year, right? You get a maintenance loan of £5,981, so just under £6,000. And 80 grand is quite high considering the average salary in the UK. I believe it's what, 24,000 or something like that. And if both parents are, say, working at the average salary, that's around 50 grand. And that's probably between the £7,319 a year and £10,000 a year. But let's just say a household is earning £40,000 a year. I need to make sure I don't get these numbers mixed up. Say if your household is earning £40,000 a year, so mom, dad, whoever in your household, maybe that's your earnings included too, who knows? £40,000 a year. You're getting £10,000 a year in your maintenance loan. So what would you be doing in this case? Let's say accommodation, we said, range from £6,500 to around £13,500. Let's just say your accommodation costs £10,000, because that's in between that range of accommodation cost a year. And you're getting £10,000 a year from your maintenance loan. We're not going to talk about any extra stuff at the moment, bursaries and all that. Maybe we'll talk about that in a separate video. Some universities have programs that give you scholarships. You may get some cash up front, and that can fund your studies or just fund your living costs, cover the excess between what the deficit might be. If you spend 12 grand a year, but you're only getting 10 grand a year in this case, then you're 2 grand in debt essentially. Maybe if you have an overdraft, you might not be paying that much if it's an interest-free one. If it isn't though, you're going to get yourself in a bad situation, especially for your credit. So let's think about this. The third point that we haven't mentioned that kind of wraps everything up is creating and sustaining inflows. And what I mean by this is part-time jobs. A lot of people find it difficult, especially in the city of London, to get a part-time job. You have to hustle. You have to put yourself in the door. Be prepared to get rejected. I mean, it is so painful getting rejected in that respect. You go into a place and you're like, look, hey, I was looking for some work. I'm a student in the nearby area. I can be flexible, all that kind of stuff. And say, I don't know, I've got online lectures largely, so I'm able to come at peak times. Maybe I can travel on the tube, I'm nearby. Sell yourself, essentially. If you have experience, that's even better. If you don't have experience, it's still possible. You have to put yourself in that door. You have to put your foot in the door. Eventually one person's going to give you a shot, and you could earn all sorts. Around here, an hour, what's minimum wage is what, £6.50 an hour for people my age, 18 years, I was going to say £18, 18 years of age. If you're a little bit older, I believe it's 21 and above, I think it's around £8.30, £8 something. I don't know the exact figure, so don't quote me on that. But you can get part-time work giving you, say, £7 an hour. Let's just use that figure. And most shifts are normally anywhere between 4 hours and 8 hours. If you work a full day, you'll be exhausted, then you'll be working 8 hours, or a short shift, 4 hours. 4 hours, £7 an hour, £28 a shift. If you work 2 shifts a week, which most students can do because weekends or some universities don't have study on Friday, let's just say you're earning £28 a shift. Not huge money, but I don't think you'd be paying any taxes on that as long as you don't have any additional income. £28, 2 shifts, £56 a week. And then you have what, around 40 weeks in the academic year. That slowly builds up. Upwards of £2,000 is then put. Say if you're spending 12 grand like we talked about earlier, and you're getting 10 grand a year from your student loan and 2 grand from your part-time job, then you're able to cover that gap whilst focusing on your studies and not spending too much time on the side of work. Some people can learn things quickly. Some people can work as much as they can, save money. And you know what it is. Money now is better than money later. And with these loans, you'll be borrowing money. You eventually have to pay that off. Why do you think people come out with 50 grand in debt or 60 grand in debt? It's absolutely crazy. But to avoid that, at least get some money on the side, build something up, maybe take some risks. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe if you have an idea and it's never been done before, maybe start your own business up. That, once again, is something that has risk. So you could lose that. You could lose more if you borrow money. But by having cash, you always have some form of liquidity. And cash is key, if you've ever heard that term before. Imagine being in a situation where you have a one-off cost. Say if you drive, your car's just busted. I could give an example. You go to an MOT and then your car's just not fit for the road. You have to spend £400-500 in cost. Maybe for a high-end car, a couple thousand. And you don't have that money on you because you're living on a neutral budget. Every month you're spending exactly what comes in during university, say. Then what are you going to do to commute to university if you drive? In London, it wouldn't really make sense to drive, but just generally, people who drive have those costs, petrol and stuff. It depends on your miles per gallon of your vehicle. We could talk about that on another occasion though, just life as a driver, because in London it just doesn't really make sense. You could go on a bike. Don't do those Santander bikes because they're a huge fraud out here. You could walk. Being in accommodation that may be a little bit more expensive, but situated directly by your university and some amenities that you may be going to, stores or whatever, is quite good as well, because you'd be saving that cost you'd spend in tube travel. A lot of people go on the tube. Normally a return journey in most zones in London seems to be around, what, £5? You take 4 journeys a week, that's £20. Times that 40 weeks, that's £800 easily. But then again, most accommodations don't kind of have that time or that type of nearness to one another. You don't see one at 6 grand, one at 7 grand. I mean, in my example, you have one at 6 grand or so, you have one at £10,000, and then you have one that's in the higher end of around 13,000. But different unis differ, so don't just use my figures. There are some universities, you've got King's, LSE, Imperial, UCL, all of them. There are some that have maybe 6 grand accommodation, 7 grand, 8 grand, and they're all priced based off the size, the amenities, whether it's catered or not, for example, and whether it's near to the university. Is the area expensive with a government subsidy? Basically, that's the government funding a little bit to make sure that your rent isn't as high as it would be if you were actually working, say, a full-time job here and you weren't studying. So We've talked about student finance, anything from £20,000 a year to £80,000 a year of household income, and how much you would get a maintenance loan of in London. And all these figures have been calculated for students that aren't studying as teachers, say, to be a teacher, because you have an added extra maintenance loan, I believe, if you're doing that. If you're studying dental stuff, medical, mental as well, but in certain terms of the side of social work. So maybe a psychologist or something like that. One of those related degrees that are kind of niche, but the government needs more people doing that in the economy. So they add a little bit extra money on top, which means you'd be a little bit better off if you're studying that same kind of course that we mentioned, the exclusions, being a teacher, dental work, medical work, or social work in terms of a degree, not the work side, but what you like to go on to do. If that's the degree you're doing, then you might have a little bit of money on top. You might be able to get a scholarship if your family's on super low income. Say it's sub 20 grand, you might be better off. Who knows? If your income is so high, your family's income, then you might not even be able to get a maintenance loan. So things will just be super expensive. Who knows? And with regards to jobs, there's a thing called uni temps. So universities may hire people for events. They'd hire students for temporary jobs. That's not regular income, but it is income that you can just get one-off. And if you're only in a gap of about £200-300 a year and you don't want to work to the point where you have commitments, and if some one-off study comes up, it's going to be quite difficult. Well, you can do that. But if you want to commit, want to spend a couple days a week, why not do some part-time work at cafes and bars and maybe shops? Indeed, applying to jobs is quite difficult because everyone uses that. Why not use things like Gumtree? I know that sounds crazy, but it happens to be a platform that people use. Why? Because the costs are, I believe, nothing. With Indeed, the employer has to pay some money. So that's one off. And also, one little point before we head off, we'll explain some of the concepts that have been discussed, things like budgeting on the daily side in a bit before we finish, a couple of your average costs. What would you normally expect to spend in London? I haven't thought of exactly whether I'm going to make another video on this or not. I've tried to put as much information as possible in one video, in one sitting. So far, we're at that. But let's just say you're working a job cash, right? Maybe your employer doesn't pay national insurance, which is an additional tax that is paid for employers that pay employees above a certain amount a week. I think it's like £163 a week. Once they pay you above that, then I think you pay a certain percentage in national insurance, which is on top of income tax. If you don't pay income tax, you may still pay that national insurance. I'm not sure of the specifics about it, but a lot of people think working a cash job is a great idea. Well, as a student, you need to worry about your credit. In a separate video, it would be a great idea to talk about property and how being a student affects your future chance to get involved in property investment. You need a good credit score. You need taxable income to prove that you have money and to get you a credit card, which you can then use, pay off that so you never incur any fees, and then keep building your credit score. That can only work if you're working on payroll. I was talking to someone the other day and they said, this person who's hiring someone, the people they're looking for have to be on payroll. Why is that? Because it benefits us as well. Yes, if you're earning above the taxable amount, you're paying tax, but you should be paying tax. You're contributing to your economy and you would be in a position to be able to do so. Imagine you don't have any additional outgoings, but you have additional inflows of cash because you're working as a student. That's great. That's a wonderful situation. So to kind of summarize, before we look at budgets a little bit and some of the things involved, you've got the first point, estimating your costs. Your spreadsheet. We'll talk about that in a sec before we finish up. You've got managing costs, where you have to get your mindset in the right place. Some ways to help this. There are a couple schemes. I mean, I don't want to directly advertise or anything. I'm not affiliated with pret manger in any way. But if you're a coffee drinker or a hot chocolate drinker or a smoothie drinker, all of that stuff, pret manger has a thing where you can get up to 5 drinks a day every day of the week. Their opening hours are quite odd though, 9 a.m., 7 a.m. sometimes to like 2 p.m. Most uni students wake up at around 2-3 p.m., especially when you get into it. When your lectures start, that's for sure. Right now, mine haven't begun, but I'm definitely having an interesting time adapting. But Pret a manger have that thing, up to 5 drinks a day. And if you normally buy a latte or something like that, ice drink, hot drink, whatever, you're spending £3-4 a go. If you go out 4 times a week to do that, say if you go to university 4 days a week and you get one on your way there, let's just not say your way back, you just get one on your way there. Then you're spending what? Let's just say £4 each time. 4 times a week, £16. 4 weeks in a month, £16 times 4, £64. Well, Pret a Manger has this thing where you can get up to 5 drinks a day, and there are some exclusions, so read the terms and conditions. Things like their bottle smoothies, I don't think you can get those, but you can spend £20 a month. So you're saving what, £44 a month just by getting that subscription. And the first month's free. So maybe if you change your mind, I'm not sure if you have to pay on the second month too, but you're only really paying £10 a month if you cancel on the second month, assuming that's the case, or you just cancel after the free trial if it's not for you. I personally am going to be using this for the whole duration of the 9 months I'm here. Give an example. Never had something called an iced mocha before. I'm sorry if anybody is offended by that, but it was okay. Quite bitter. I asked for a sweet option, but who knows? Maybe I'll experiment. But there's that with regards to Pret a Manger's Your Barista. I think it's Your Pret scheme or something like that. It's barista service. And the reason why I recommend it is there's like hundreds, maybe not hundreds, but a lot of Pret a Manger's throughout London. In any other city, it doesn't make sense. But that's really the subscription service that's pretty cool. I've signed up myself today, and I think it's definitely worth it because I normally would be someone who would get one of those drinks on the way. And now I can save myself a little bit of outgoings in doing so. A lot of students could do that. Don't buy the things at your unis and overpay for them. Get yourself hungry, get yourself thirsty and overspend because you won't be able to come back home, say if your commute's long. Who knows? That's up to you though. If you don't drink coffee, drink hot chocolate, drink smoothies, and you're just a water person, then I got you. You just have some water. That's all it is. Fair. You can get that for free outside most places. Maybe not in London, who knows, but tap water, usually, I don't know. But anyways, to finish off this whole introduction to budgeting in London as a student, I think it would be a good shout to look at some of the things you'd be spending your money on. I'll probably look at a video, find a better format to do this, and go into more detail on some things. But the basic things are what? Clothes and shopping. If you're a guy or a girl, you're going to look on sites like Boohoo or ASOS. It's funny because you can buy women's clothes on Boohoo Man, but for most guys, Boohoo Man is the right option. For girls, I assume ASOS. I'm not too familiar with the equivalent budgeting option, but I'm sure you can find them all on the web. You can get clothes for literally what, £5, £10, £20, £30 instead of having to buy designer all out or splash it out or whatever just for the trend. You got to be careful when spending online because it doesn't feel like you're physically giving the cash to them and it's going away from you. You're just typing your card details in and it all goes. But use those things to budget. Buy cheaper but good quality clothes if that's what you're trying to get at, because there are some decent things out there. But you've got clothes and shopping, so you buy like things for your room. I don't know, probably not candles as a uni student. Little tip there, because if the fire alarm goes off, there's a problem, and apparently your deposit's at risk as well if you do that. So be careful on that front. Shopping could be all sorts of things. You could buy yourself a little mini fridge. Some accommodations allow you, some don't. Some fortunate. You could buy yourself all sorts of one-off things. Laptop, computer, monitors, replace a charger, replace a keyboard, a mouse, who knows? You could buy whatever. Those kind of things. You can also buy course materials, so textbooks and all that stuff. And I think there will be a separate video where I'll look into the budgeting side, where we'll see how much is like a fair amount to spend on things like mobile phone subscriptions, general subscriptions like Spotify, Netflix, both things I use, but I would suggest if you don't use, cancel and then subscribe again when you decide to use. Don't get Disney Plus, Netflix, Stars Play if you watch Power, and all the others of Amazon Prime Video, because before you know it, you have like 3 or 4 outgoings out. Choose the one you watch the most and restrict yourself a little bit. Life can't be that easy, can it? So subscriptions tend to be a fair amount. got my spreadsheet up here, and I'll use that in a separate video where I'll talk through some of the elements, and I'll also include a link to that in that video's description. Creds to Save the Students website for this. If you want to find it, you can probably search it and it'll be there. Gifts and charity. Maybe you're a person that believes in giving charity every once in a while. Clear your conscience, or just be a good person. Who knows? Maybe sometimes you want to do that. I don't know. I mean, everything in that regard is personal to someone. For example, people who are religious, maybe they give a certain amount a year. Maybe people who aren't religious also give a certain amount a year. Depends whether it's a personal choice or it's a religious requirement, whatever. That's totally up to you. If you want to keep fit, then you will go to the gym. In London, the gym's quite expensive. In Portsmouth, with a student discount, it's about £18 a month. In London, with a student discount, it's about £30 a month. What Pure Gym, as an example, is £18.99 in Portsmouth with a discount on uni days, which you should also use. I don't know if I'll include the link, but uni days, use your student email address whether you're in college or uni, and you should be all right. And you'll be all right on that regard. So gym membership might be a little bit more expensive here, but if it helps you, do it. I'm currently looking into that stuff at the moment, but first couple of days, got to look around a little bit. You've got other one-off costs we kind of mentioned before. Want to buy yourself a MacBook or whatever, or just a casual laptop, or little things, mini fridge, something like that. We talked about course materials, holiday events, things on your health and well-being. So a holiday or an event could be things like subscriptions to societies, couple pounds a year, or maybe a five-a-side football thing. That's an event. That counts essentially as an event. Or a holiday. You're going out on a friend's holiday. You've saved some money. You worked hard, and you think, I'm going to spend a couple of hundred and go wherever. Maybe get a cheap Ryanair flight somewhere, or just get a package with some friends and split that money. There's all sorts of things you can do. I'm trying to see what else I've missed out. I think that's probably enough. We'll look at some of the other bits that maybe any questions. If in this video you want to see a video on something, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll see if I can help share the experience. I'm on day 3 as a uni student, and it's definitely intense, a lot more responsibilities, but it's something you need to do. You have to take that chapter to move forward in your life. And I think it's going to be worth it. Well, you either know it's going to be worth it or you don't know, because if you don't think it's worth it, you'll always have doubt. But I appreciate if anyone's been watching this far for coming along, and I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will probably release some future videos soon. This has all been one go, So I appreciate any likes, comments, subscriptions, all of that stuff. And this has been a video from myself, Ryan Keir, and I will catch you next time.